Hi, welcome to day 2 of our Spring Pastels Corner to Corner Baby Blanket Crochet Along. And again, I'm Chris, and so far we have progressed quite a bit on our baby blanket. And what we're going to do today is start to decrease. Now, I've worked to row number 40, completed that. Can't fit the whole thing in my picture, but you can see how we have half of the body of the whole blanket. And with 40 rows, we also have 40 squares across. Now, at this point, we are actually at the top left-hand corner of the blanket, and we're ready to start decreasing and going back the other way to finish the other half of the blanket. So what we've done right here, I have the end of row 40, and instead of doing a chain 6 like we've been doing, what we are going to do is a chain 1 and turn the whole thing and start back down and decreasing. Now the way we decrease is when we are at the end of the row from now on both ends actually, we are going to go into the first stitch, the top of the first double crochet, and just do a slip stitch. And then we're going to do a slip stitch in the next top of the next double crochet. Then we are going to do a slip stitch in the third stitch. So now we've got 3 slip stitches, and then we're going to do one more slip stitch in that chain space that we've been working through for all of our squares. So we do a slip stitch there, and what we've effectively done here is made the top left-hand corner of the blanket, and now we're starting down to make the other half of the blanket. Now everything's the same from now on until we get to the next side. So here what we want to do is our chain 3 and then do our 3 double crochets in that chain space. Okay, so we have our first square of row 41. Then we're going to find our next space on the next square and do a slip stitch like regular, pull it through, chain 3, just like you've been doing for the previous rows, and then do our double crochet, 3 double crochets in that space. Okay, now the tricky part was up here at the point or the top left corner of our blanket. And in order to get that so everybody is with me, I'm going to back up, I'm going to pull out these squares and go back to the end of. Now the tricky part was to turn ourselves around and start decreasing. So we were at the end of row 40. That was kind of our homework, as we know, from day 1. And I have already shown how to do this, but I want to show it again so that you don't get mixed up or you can't figure it out. So here we are at the end of row 40, and I haven't done any chaining yet. And instead of doing the 6 that we have been doing at the end of each row, we are just going to do a chain 1. Turn everything. And now what we're going to do, and I'll try and get the rest of the blanket out of the way so I kind of have just a plain background. What we're going to do, as I've said before, is find those tops of the double crochets, do a slip stitch on the top of the double crochet under the two legs of the V, slip stitch 1. Next double crochet, do a slip stitch. There's 2. Third slip stitch. And then in that space that we've been working all of our double crochets in, that space created by the chain, do a slip stitch. And again, as I said before, this is now the corner of the top left-hand corner of your blanket. Now, the big difference after this is that we don't do 6 on the end on the end square. We just do 3. So we're going to start with row 41, doing 3 chains, and then our 3 double crochets. And this begins our row 41. Okay, and then the rest of this row is exactly like we've been doing, where we find our chain space, do our slip stitch, just like what you've been doing before, chain 3, and then 3 double crochets in that chain space, all the way across. So this has become old hat for you, this part, because this is what you've been doing for 40 rows. So we're doing row 41, slip stitch, 3 chains, 3 double crochets, all the way across. Now, if you've been having any problems, be sure that you're going into the Facebook group and asking your questions, or you can email me if you'd like to do that. You can do any of those, but Facebook group is probably our best bet. And I will be doing Facebook Lives so that we can actually chat with each other real time. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and I'll be back when we all get to the end of row 41, and we're ready to finish that end and decrease and start coming back the other way. Now I am just getting to the end of row 41, so I'm going to do my slip stitch in this square, and then my 3 chains, and my 3 double crochets, just about at the end. So there's my second last square for row 41. And now here's my last square. Straighten that out, find your opening, slip stitch, and as you've learned, we're not done yet. We have to finish our last square, do our 3 chains and our 3 double crochets. And now row 41 is finished. But once again, now we have to start decreasing. We decreased and turned ourselves around on the beginning of row 41. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. So we do 1 chain, turn everything around, and then we do our slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet, slip stitch into the second double crochet, slip stitch into the third double crochet, and slip stitch into the space formed by the chain 3. Now to work our way back, we've slip stitched into the space formed by that chain 3, and now we have to make our first square of row 42. So again, we just chain 3 when we're doing these decrease rows, not 6 like we've been doing for 40 rows before. And once we do the chain 3, And then it's the 3 double crochets again. And we've formed the first square of row 42. And this will kind of straighten itself out right here as that edge as we go along. But that's going to be a straight edge of the blanket. This is a corner square. Now, the rest of the row, we just want to do like usual. Slip stitch into the space, 3 chains, and 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space. In all of these squares, all the way across. So, I'm going to let you do all of those squares until you get to the last couple of squares and the turnaround for the end of row 42. Okay, so there you can see this is a corner and we're starting across. Okay, we have now gotten to basically the end of row 42, and I just have a couple more squares to go, and I wanted to show you how to finish this, and then I'll let you go so that you can continue to go until you get to the end at row 79. And then we've basically completed the body of the corner to corner baby blanket, and we'll be ready for the borders next time. But what we want to do, I'm getting to the end here of row 42, and I've slip stitched into the opening at the chain. Again, 1, 2, 3 chains, and now 3 double crochets. 3 double crochets in our opening, 1 square, and now we want to connect to the next one. Slip stitch into the chains, or into the space from the chain, 3, and now 3 chains, 3 double crochets, and again this is all what you've been doing all the way along. I'm just showing to getting to the end of this row. And now we've got the last, that was the last square of row 42, and now we're going to find the chain space, the opening created by that chain, slip stitch to it. So what you can see is we've now connected the last square of row 42. Now we'll do 1 chain, turn everything, and now we'll do again the slip stitches into the top of the double crochets. So there's 1 slip stitch, 2 slip stitch, and again we're just going into the top of the double crochets like we did at the end of the other rows, and now slip stitch into the space created by the chains. And again we're going right down, creating that straight side. Now we're ready to start back, so it's chain 3, we're beginning the next row. And this is how you'll do all the rows from now on. Do 3 double crochets in that space. And basically we've got the beginning of the next row. So now it's just all the squares that are on the inside, they're not edges. So we slip stitch into the chain of that square, and like usual, 3 chains, 3 double crochets. And that's what you're going to do all the way across. So what I'd like you to do is and I'll just connect this to that next square. I'd like you to do between now and next time is to complete all of your rows up to and through row 79. And at that point, you'll see that you've got your completed body of the blanket. So again, good luck. I think you're doing well. If you have any questions, email me or ask in the Facebook group, and I'll see you at Facebook Live. Thanks.